Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to part 2 of this Boba Fett illustration. We are back and I think I'm still going to focus on this part of the arm right here. Again, we're in Clip Studio Paint. So first, as always, I'm just going to check my pressure, make sure everything's okay before we get into work. Now, after the first video, I mean that's one of the first ever YouTube videos I've done. I didn't like the idea of doing a voiceover after I had finished an illustration. Really didn't enjoy that. So this video I am recording as I draw, which for me is a bit different. I mean, you ask most illustrators and we usually have music on, or we've got something on, some TV, something on in the background. So for it to be this quiet is a bit strange for me. I was thinking about this illustration last night and I've decided that we need some more shadows. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. I'm going to focus on this area. I know that I said that I jump around a lot, but I don't know, there's something here that I feel needs to be brought out before I move on, so that I can get the overall vibe of this poster. I'm thinking it needs to be quite dark and ominous, so I am going to bring these shadows across, as you can see now. Yeah, some much darker areas, because the darker areas will be used to frame the color when I do bring that in. So yeah, it needs a lot of shadow, I think anyway. Most of my work does have a real strong what's the word, selection of shadows. So we'll just bring that across. Plus it always makes the highlights stand out if you can throw in as much shadow detail as possible. So all this can be shadow, and constantly just thinking about a light source. So my light source is coming from this way. Oops, that's to protect the eyes. So yeah, my light source, I'm thinking, will be coming this way, this way, this way. You get the idea. So yeah, shadows this side, light source that side, shadows around here. All this will be in shadow. I've just remembered I wanted another workspace, didn't I? So you could see the full drawing at all times. So if I just make that out, fit to screen, that way when I'm drawing here, you can see how it's coming together on the full piece. No, I've said to myself that we would stay to this area. So usually I work at the smallest A3 size, but this, as you can tell up here, is actually being drawn in A4, but with the resolution up at 600. I would be able to print it A3 if I so choose to a bit later, but currently I fancy doing a bit of work smaller, kind of easier to manage, easier to store, especially when I print, when I have prints in my house. Finding storage space is quite valuable at the minute. So the smaller size and everyone's happy. Yeah, so if I bring some shadows behind some of the armor, yeah, some long form shadows brings everything popping a bit. So obviously down with that light source coming from the top right, all this will be in shadow, but I don't want it to be so dark that you can't distinguish sections. And especially with fabric, you want all the shadows to look natural. Nothing worse than a robotic lack of definition. So if we imagine there's some fraying and some bulges, some peaks and valleys, we can define around them. So that's looking okay. Obviously, these are still just first passes. We can add to this later. There's no limit. I mean, there's no timeline for this piece. Essentially, it is just something I want to do. So there is no real deadline. Oh, sorry, my graphics. There we go. Don't know what happened there. Some lag. Again. Strange. There we go. I don't know if it's the recording software slowing down the computer or what, but yeah, we don't usually have that issue. There we go. So it's happening. So light source again up there. All this will be in shadow. So just bring that across. There we go. Just make the brush a bit bigger to fill in some blacks. I usually fill in the blacks and use it to define a straighter edge. I find it a lot easier with a bigger brush. Okay. And we can pull out some lines just to give it the impression of a curved surface. I don't want to go too strong with the blacks here because brush is a bit big. Because I may add some highlights with the flames from a jetpack. So where to next? I think we'll carry on. Ooh. We will carry on with this area. Sorry, I was pressing the wrong shortcut key. So all this would be in shadow. So if we bring it across in this direction, we can start to bring it across. I am rotating the screen. I do tend to do this more so when I'm not recording. When I've done speed painting before, it kind of gives you a headache if I keep rotating the screen. That's why we have the full screen in the bottom right hand corner, so that you don't have to really get dizzy as I spin the canvas, if I spin the canvas. Here I'm just creating some focal lines, very faintly, trying to give the look of armor, especially when we do add to it later. So he's got a shoulder pad there. And would that be clothing? No, that would be his armor as well. I'll tell you what we'll do is we'll continue to bring out some shadows across. One thing that looking at this illustration is I will probably have to go in and try to add some more detail in the pencils, which I probably won't record because they do take me a while and it's really not that interesting as it's a lot of trial and error. But any changes that I make will, especially in the inking, I will do on the channel. We seem to be... I was in eraser mode, didn't realise. So, again, if we bring some shadows, and now we are just following the curved surface of the shoulder. So we fade out into the solid lines. Yeah, so here again we just follow the existing lines. So it will be straight down, straight up even. And across, and vice versa on the other side. A bit more pressure than I intended there. There, and it's starting to come a bit more to life. One of the hardest things I find is the limit of blacks I want to add before the colour, because shading with colour is such a rewarding thing to do that sometimes there's a poster, it's not been released yet, that I've been working on, and all the, well, not all, but most of the shadows that I drew I actually went back and erased because the idea of shading with colour suited the work a bit nicer. But I think, you know, Boba Fett is quite a menacing, brooding, dark character that the blacks they would work quite well with him. So we don't have that worry here. I may decide to use a lighter grey for these blacks on Boba Fett. I just realised that I didn't erase my lines. Sorry, I was having some technical errors there. Back there. So yeah, I was saying I had forgot to erase these lines, but now they've gone, so don't worry about that. So looking at the illustration, I feel, you know, I don't want to jump too far across every part. I really want to give an insight into how I do certain areas of the illustration. So this isn't exactly my usual style of working, but it's always good to change it up a bit. I may need to get some references. I'm not sure if this is a sharp curve or a soft one like I've just drawn. I'll check that a bit later. Now we'll soften some of these shadows. See, this kind of sharp shadow is something I need to avoid. It usually happens, especially in my work, when I tend to outline an area first, and it takes me a while to soften the area. And I feel that maybe if I just don't do that in the first place, it will be a lot less time consuming. I need to undo that. Make the brush a bit smaller. Oh, God, made it worse. There we go. It's a lot of trial and error. I know I can see what I want to do in my head, but sometimes it's just not how it comes out, especially with digital media. Although, you have the undo button, you just don't tend to have the same amount of control as you do with traditional media. See, I really want to add a dark shadow here, but we would lose the definition of the side of his face. So I'm thinking this shadow here will have to wait for color. So when we bring some color in, I am going to try help pull out this section over here. Just some lines to help. And you can see over here, you can't even see the lines really, but they just work. Some flicks. Nothing has to be too perfect, but it does work. So you can kind of see some flicks. I think something that I tend to do with digital media is I zoom in too much and I get a bit obsessed with being pixel perfect at close scale where, if you're looking at the illustration like that, you can barely see those lines I've just done. So that's just something I'm trying to improve with my own work. I'm also going to add some of these lines down here, maybe even across the whole illustration. So they do just tend to add. Let's try sharpen this outer edge. And we can always go back in and add some detail with the eraser tool, for example, if we wanted to bring out, a bit too much pressure. If we wanted to bring out an edge like that, you know, you can. Just because it's solid black now doesn't mean it needs to end solid black. In fact, I'm going to leave that there like that. So we've added some shadow into the arm. I did actually wanted to erase this as well to give some depth to the side of the armor. I just worry that it's a bit overpowering and I need to get the edge right. Well, we'll spend the night and look at that again, maybe in the next video. So this is where those faint strokes really work. You can so quickly just bring out areas, and you know, down here you can barely see, but when you print them, they just add a tiny extra bit of fluidity to the piece. Yeah, I may add just a bit more darkness down here, because as I said, if we're shadowing with color down there, we don't have to worry about it merging into one gigantic black hole, which is something you really want to avoid with this style of illustration. I mean, again, down here, maybe we do use the eraser and bring out some creases in the fabric. Ooh, maybe not that one. Maybe we do try to have something pop in the shadows. I need to again find reference for this, and this curve at the bottom is hideous. What's here? I believe it's, oh, we add not that stroke. We can start to pull out the definition in this sphere. We will probably erase that line there. And again, down here, you don't need to worry about the definition too much. I mean, that looks weird when you're zoomed in, but down here, it will look fine. It will look fine. There's something I don't like about this, actually. I think it looks too sharp again. Maybe we'll play with that later. It's kind of hard because I can't think of the reference off the top of my head. I may need to, as I said earlier, go back and fix the pencils. If I do end up doing that, which as I've said it enough times, I may do, so I probably will now. I will have a quick walkthrough and explain what I've changed and why. I think it will be mainly tightening up the pencil sketch. You know, that's barely a hand. I think, yeah, if I remember correctly, he's got a gun there. and his second hand comes up. Here you can kind of see the arrow from his gauntlet. I believe that's his chest there, so hand, armor, arrow, etc. But I will try to tidy that up. I need to find some reference images of Boba Fett's belt. I know that it has canisters of some type. So once we get some more reference photos and I fix up the line work, we can start adding some more detail. Not sure if these flicks will work. They don't follow the line of the actual. Oh, and there's not enough room in my history. They don't follow the line of the jetpack, so we'll erase those. But that might be something we do next, is just bring them up like that, and as long as they do follow, it should look okay. Let's have a look. Or it might look awful, I don't know, we'll see. And then we'll just start adding a definition to one of his bags or pockets. Again, light up here, so this will be all dark shadow, and lots of dark greens, dark silver for the armor sections. But this is where I am going to leave the video now. So, you know, we put a bit of work in the arm, a bit of work in the jetpack. I think this bit looks decent. Maybe not too happy with this. It doesn't feel as strong as it could do. And tomorrow's video we'll start looking at the helmet, and I want to bring the level of detail of the arm into the helmet, and maybe we'll try to define this handgun area, maybe make it look a bit more interesting. Tomorrow's video may be a longer one, so make sure to like and subscribe, and do share this video if you found it interesting, or if you just want to share it with any other artists or illustrators. Okay, bye bye.